Life is a miracle. To witness a mother give birth and a child grow up, to watch the gift of life unfold over the years, all those key moments imprint on your memory forever. And this process of growth and change is fascinating. It's why we show baby photos at weddings and wedding photos at funerals. But the most fascinating changes aren't external, but internal. Not to our body as much as to our soul, to who we become. In the Christian way, this process of change is called spiritual formation. Last week, we covered the 3 goals of a disciple or apprentice of Jesus: to be with Jesus, to become like him, and to do as he did. And we said spiritual formation is the process by which all this happens, by which our spirit or our inner woman or man is formed into a particular shape or what we call a character, whether it be the character of Jesus or the character of someone else. The language of spiritual formation comes from the New Testament. For example, in Romans 12, Paul writes this to the followers of Jesus in the city of Rome: "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Notice the 2 verbs, conform and transform. Both verbs are from the same root word in Greek, metamorphao, where we get the English word metamorphosis, the word for the process by which a caterpillar is transformed into a butterfly. One lexicon defines it as to change the essential form or nature of something. This is the word picture for the depth of change that is possible in the human soul. Not just surface level behavior modification, but deep change in the heart. And in Greek, both verbs, conform and transform, are in the present passive tense, meaning they are something that is already happening to you. You are already being conformed to be more like the pattern of this world, or transformed to be more like Jesus. There is no option C, conformed or transformed.
When I first moved to New York City, one of the things I noticed was how much the city itself shaped me. New York is a formation machine. It affects your level of aggression. It affects the pace at which you walk. In fact, sociologists tell us that if you live in New York for a while, you will actually begin to walk faster than people in other cities. The stories of New York, the architecture of New York, the history of New York all work on you subtly and slowly, where when you go back and visit your families for the holidays, they often say, "What's happened to you?" And the answer is, "New York has happened to me." But you're never really aware of it in any given moment. And I think that's such an important recognition for me as a pastor, because so often people are naive and they think, I'm not being shaped by anything. Sometimes non-Christians say, I don't want to follow Jesus. I don't want to be formed by religion. But the truth is, we're all being formed by something. The question's not, shall someone form me? The question is, who will form me? The question is not, who do I want to become? The question is, who am I becoming by the forces that are working on me? And I think Paul really understood the importance of making our formation conscious. He said to the Romans in Romans 12, do not be conformed to the image of this world. Why? Because that's what it does. He wanted the Christians in Rome to recognize and understand how Rome was shaping them into Romans. The stories of Rome, the religion of Rome, the architecture of Rome, the practices of what it meant to participate in the empire were making them Romans. So they had to discern their formation so they could be transformed. And this is what Jesus wants us to do, to figure out who Jesus is and how his story, his truth, his love, and his practices form us into his disciples. So the great question is not, shall I be formed? The question is consciously determining who it is that will form you.
The first thing we need to understand about spiritual formation is this. Spiritual formation isn't a Christian thing, it's a human thing. To be human is to change. We can't help it. Whether we are religious or not, we grow, evolve, go astray, come back to the path. I occasionally hear people say they are getting into spiritual formation, by which they usually mean they are reading good books and beginning to practice ancient spiritual disciplines like solitude and silence, or they are in therapy. All very good. But just to clarify, you've been being spiritually formed since before you took your first breath. Spiritual formation begins in utero and continues through all our days, whether we are into it or not. Mother Teresa was a product of spiritual formation, and so was Hitler. Queen Elizabeth was spiritually formed, as was Genghis Khan. Their spirits were formed over a long period of time through a complex alchemy of genetic inheritance, family patterns, childhood wounds, education, habits, decisions, relationships, environments, and much more. Same with you and me. We've been formed. We're being formed, and we will be formed in the days to come. Spiritual formation is not optional. The problem is, most of our formation is unintentional. No one sits down one day and decides to be conformed to the pattern of this world. No one sets out to become bitter or angry or greedy or judgmental or fearful. It just happens. Simply by living in Manhattan or LA or wherever you call home and living a normal life. Because of that, I've found it incredibly helpful to name the forces in my life that are forming or deforming me. And in this session, we want to help you do the same. To that end, here's a paradigm we call unintentional spiritual formation. How we become who we become is a sacred mystery of the human soul, taunting the brightest minds of both science and spirituality. But there is a surprising level of agreement across disciplines. We are formed by 6 primary forces: our habits, our relationships, the stories we believe, our environment, time, and experience. The first 4 forces are more active, more about what we do. The last 2 are more passive, more about what is done to us. Let's take a deeper look at each one. We are formed by our habits. What we do on a regular basis, we become. Reading the news, doom scrolling on social media, going to the gym, the things we do something to us. They get into the core of our being and shape who we become. The journalist Charles Duhigg called this the power of habit. It's easy to think we're just watching Netflix or checking email late at night or buying another pair of shoes. But actually, we're turning a kind of invisible fulcrum in our heart in a particular direction. We're becoming a type of person. Secondly, we are formed by our relationships. We become like the people we spend time with. Think about your family and friends. The odds are very high that you dress like them, think like them, talk like them, vote like them, spend money like them, and so on. Third, we are formed by the stories we believe. God wired the human brain to search for meaning, to take all the data points of reality and turn them into a story, a narrative to live in and live out. This is why we love movies and novels and telling stories around the campfire. And every day we are exposed to stories. Stories about what is the good life, what will make us happy, and what the meaning and purpose of life even is. These stories shape us far more than we realize. And whatever stories we come to believe are true, determine the kind of people we become. For example, one of the reasons so many marriages end in heartache is because no marriage can possibly live up to the story we are told by Hollywood and pop music. which is very different from the story Jesus tells. The stories we believe give shape to the thousands of decisions we make every day, from whether we stay in a marriage, to how we spend our money, to how many hours we spend at work. Pick your stories carefully, because they will determine who you become. And our stories and relationships and habits all come from an environment. Whether you live in a small town or a global city, in a Western secular culture or a traditional religious culture, we all become like the place we live. And in the digital age, we all live in two places at once, in our city or town or area, and in the echo chambers of the algorithms that define our digital home. This may be good or it may be bad, but it is. You will become like your environment. These forces work on us slowly over time. They sneak up on us little by little and have a cumulative effect. We wake up one day and realize we've changed. And through experience, we are deeply shaped not just by what we do, but by what is done to us. Nowhere is this more true than in our family of origin and our childhood, but it's also true of our whole lives. Do we go to college or drop out of high school? Get our dream job or file for bankruptcy? Get married, get divorced, or stay single? Our experiences deeply shape who we become. In summary, we are formed by our habits, relationships, the stories we believe, and our environment. And this happens over time and through experience. We call this paradigm unintentional spiritual formation because it's a synopsis of how we are formed with no intentionality, just by waking up in the morning and going about our day. The question isn't, are you becoming someone? It's, who or what are you becoming? When I reflect on this paradigm, I find it both sobering and hopeful. Let me guide you in a short reflection exercise. Close your eyes for just a moment. Take a few deep, slow breaths. Ask God to direct your mind. Now, imagine yourself at 70 or 80 or 90. What kind of person do you see? Ask yourself, who am I becoming? I remember the first time I ever did that exercise. I was about 30 years old, and I had enough life under my belt to plot a hypothetical trajectory and imagine myself at 40 or 50 or 60. And the person I saw on the horizon was terrifying. I was becoming more hurried and anxious and irritable, not more loving and joyful and peaceful. In my case, it was a wake-up call. I realized I had to make some major life changes. What about you? What changes do you need to make to alter the trajectory of your spiritual formation in the direction of Jesus?
Thank you for listening. Now it's time to process this truth about spiritual formation together. You may be feeling a number of emotions as you realize you're becoming a person, and that all sorts of forces in your life, from your morning routine to your friend group to your social media feed, are deforming you more than forming you. Let's process this together. Circle up in groups of 3 to 5 people and talk through the following questions. The first, what habits do you keep in your daily and weekly life, and how might they be shaping you? This may be as simple as what you do after you wake up, what activities fill up your free time, or as complex as how you respond internally and externally to interruptions in your day. Second, who are the most important people in your life? And what do those relationships look like? Third, as you reflect on your own journey, what stories have shaped the way you view the world, and where do these stories originate? These stories could be, what's your version of a good life? What should you spend your money on? How should you interact with your family? And fourth, did God reveal anything new to you in this session that you want to say more about? Take a few minutes and discuss. Now it's time to take the next step. For those of you reading the Practising the Way book alongside the course, this week we're reading part 2. And as we said in the last session, each week we'll offer a spiritual exercise for you to move forward in your discipleship to Jesus. Everything we offer is invitational. We make recommendations, you make decisions. But open up your guide to session 2 and let's explore this week's spiritual exercise.
Our exercise for this coming week is to conduct a formation audit. For me, going through this formation audit has been a powerful and illuminating experience. Perfectly going through an exercise like this can help us become more self-aware and set the stage for our growth toward wholeness, for our becoming more like Jesus. In this exercise, we take an inventory of all the forces that are currently forming us. To help you with your audit, we have created a template for you to work through, which you can find in your guide in the On Your Own section for Session 2. In this audit, we work through each of the 6 forces that form us: the stories we believe, our habits, our relationships, our environment, our time and experiences. The first step is to write out your morning routine, your workday, your evening habits, your eating and sleeping patterns. You then write about your various relationships and your family history. The next step, which requires more reflection, is to identify how these patterns and relationships are forming you. You might want to process this step with a wise, trusted friend, a counselor, pastor, or spiritual director. As you work through your formation audit, try not to be judgmental. Don't beat yourself up. Just write down everything that has shaped you, past and present. For example, you might look at your morning routine and notice that you start your day by reading the news. You might ask, what is this habit doing to me? What kind of person am I becoming by letting the news, much of which is alarming, be the first thing in my consciousness every day? As you reflect on your routine, you may consider how you might develop a new morning routine, like the one we started last week, beginning your day with quiet prayer and reading scripture. Similarly, as you reflect on your day at school or work, you might think about your interactions with people. Do they leave you feeling stressed and anxious, or energized and grateful? Finally, you might consider what you typically do at night. Do you tend to be on your phone, watching Netflix, or playing video games? Or perhaps you have a ritual that helps you recollect the day and give thanks. How do these habits and rituals shape you? Remember, try not to be judgmental. Don't beat yourself up. Just write out all the forces in your life, past and present. This exercise can take more than an hour. We encourage you to take an evening this week or a quiet morning to do this. Although it's a longer exercise, it can open the door to profound transformation as you grow in self-awareness and are inspired to establish habits that help you grow into the person you long to become. As you reflect on these forces, ask yourself, how are they forming me? Are they leading me to a sense of life and peace and closer to God? Or are they causing me to feel restless, anxious, and distant from God? As you continue your daily prayer rhythm you practiced last week, use some of that time to offer whatever feelings, desires, insights, or interactions you have to God, and pray that the Holy Spirit will lead you onto the path of life. As you conduct your formation audit, as David prays at the end of Psalm 139, may God search you and know your heart, test you and know your anxious thoughts, and see if there is any offensive way in you, and then lead you in the way everlasting.
Let's review what we've covered in session 2. Spiritual formation isn't a Christian thing. It's a human thing. We're formed by a complex web of forces, but especially by our habits, our relationships, the stories we believe, and our environment. This happens over time and through experience. Most of our formation is unintentional. One of the most important questions to reflect on is, who am I becoming? And am I being intentional about who I'm becoming? One of the best ways to do this is through this coming week's practice, a formation audit.
The philosopher Dallas Willard used to say, the main thing God gets out of our life is the person we become. It's hard for me to imagine right now, but one day I'm going to wake up and, God willing, I'll be 70 or 80 or 90 years old. And what will matter on that day is not how much money I made or how successful I was by the standards of the world or whether or not I saw that new TV series. What will matter is the person I became. This is why Saint Benedict in the 6th century said, day by day, remind yourself that you are going to die. He urged people to meditate every day on their coming death, not to provoke fear or dread, but to remind us, don't waste your life. Live for what matters, so that when we come to the end of our lives, we can die at peace. But this will require us to reflect on our life today and connect the dots between how we are living and who we are becoming. So as you apprentice under Jesus and you conduct your formation audit and start to make decisions about your life, may you live for what matters. May you treat each day as a precious gift to be stewarded with gratitude and joy. And may every day find you more and more at peace in God.